of the most requested services we're seeing right now is the cookie audit. Why? Between SIPA litigation, enforcement actions, and more privacy laws, companies are finally paying attention to what's happening to those digital trackers and cookies on their sites. We find it's the same story we run into with clients constantly. A company sets up a cookie banner, they configure a consent tool, they feel good about it and move on to the next fire. And then sometimes a year later, sometimes 3 years later, they finally have someone dive deeper and realize it's not all functioning the way it should. This isn't a story about companies cutting corners. Most of the businesses we work with genuinely believe they're compliant. They bought and configured the tool and feel like they did what was supposed to happen. Since then, though, it has not been reviewed or tested. The gap doesn't come from carelessness, it comes from complexity and from how quietly these things can drift once nobody's watching. Picture a retailer selling products across 3 branded websites, plus a loyalty program on top of that. Marketing runs a shared tag management platform across 2 agency partners, and each site has its own cookie banner. That's the kind of setup a lot of teams point to as proof they've handled cookies. A banner is up, a tool is running, box check, moving on. Then Cookie Audit finds this instead. Cookies sitting in an uncategorized bucket, with some of them dropping before the visitor ever makes a consent choice. Global Privacy Control is working correctly on 2 of the 3 sites, but not the third, because nobody has checked whether the configuration carried over. And a do not sell or share link in the footer that works fine on desktop, yet quietly 404s on mobile. None of these are the kind of problems anyone would catch by glancing at the homepage. They're the kind of problems that only show up when someone goes looking specifically for them, site by site, page by page, and device by device. So what are the 6 places we constantly find the gap? After enough of these audits, we see the same handful of failure points keep showing up, almost regardless of industry, and I put together where to look first. Cookies miscategorized as strictly necessary. This is one of the most common findings in our audits. Advertising and analytics cookies quietly get filed under strictly necessary, which means they fire before anyone has a chance to say yes or no. What's the fix? Pull the actual cookie inventory from a scan, not from what the original setup notes say, and recheck every category against what the cookie is really doing. This might go all the way back to checking the contract too. Next, no clarity on which jurisdictions actually apply. We regularly find teams that build one cookie experience and assume it covers everyone, without mapping where visitors are actually coming from. The fix? Map your audience geography against the laws that apply to each region first, then build or verify a consent experience for each one. What's a non-issue for a US only visitor can be a real violation for someone arriving from the EU. Do not sell or share in privacy rights links that don't work. This is a near constant finding in our audits. These links get built once, tested once, and never touched again. The fix? Test them on desktop and mobile on every site on a recurring schedule, not just at launch. Dark patterns in the consent experience. Oh my goodness, I see this so often. Pre-check boxes, accept all buttons that are bigger and bolder, attracting attention to pick that one. Confusing wording that nudges people towards saying yes. We flag at least one of these items almost every time we review a consent flow. The fix? Have someone unfamiliar with the site try to opt out cold. If they struggle, so will your visitors, and so will a regulator reviewing it. No functioning universal opt-out. We often find that global privacy control gets implemented on the main site and never verified across every other property. The fix? Confirm GPC actually works site by site, not just one set rollout, since one working example doesn't mean the rest are covered. Sometimes website updates can impact these settings. We find privacy notices that don't match reality. We often see the effective date updated to the current year, but the notice describes a cookie program that may have existed a year ago, not the one actually running today. The fix? Treat the privacy notice as a living document tied to your audit cadence, not a one-time write-up. The gap between the sites we actively manage and the sites that are live and collecting data right now is almost never zero. Properties fall off the radar while they keep quietly gathering information in the background, exactly like that subscription I totally forgot about. There are some digital tracker scanning tools like Pravado, ObservePoint, Boltiv, Sentinel Insights. Those are just a few we see clients use. And they monitor for various requirements like opt-in or opt-out working properly, miscategorized cookies, a GPC not working, and more. Some consent managers have similar capabilities built in, and we've seen people use both the third-party scanning tool and the consent software's built-in check. However, all these tools are only as good if someone's assigned to review what they're reporting and actually addressing what's found. A really common miss is ignoring the findings and fixing the issues. Without any testing tool in place, someone needs to perform the audit manually, and we see plenty of companies doing this too. What does all this mean for your program? A cookie audit tests whether the pieces of your program actually talk to each other the way you assume they do, using the 7 checks above as your starting point rather than the finish line. Agency partners often have direct access to shared tag management platforms, and they can add new tags to hit a campaign deadline without necessarily routing it through a formal approval process. You, the company, are responsible for every cookie on the site, which means you have the right processes in place to catch everything and know what's happening. A cookie audit should be part of each new web page rollout, part of each new digital tracker placement, be a part of the agency monthly review process, and overall considered part of website maintenance. Save this handy process reminder to start planning your cookie audit today. Building a repeatable audit process, even a lightweight one you run on a set schedule, is what keeps you from being surprised a year from now by something that's been sitting there the whole time. If you are the one responsible for your company's cookie program, the honest question worth asking this week is, when's the last time someone actually checked whether the consent setup is doing what it should be doing? If the answer is not sure, it's probably time to do one ASAP. We've done enough of these audits to know the finding is rarely everything's fine. It's usually something like the retailer I mentioned earlier, mostly right with a few quiet gaps nobody had reason to notice until someone went looking. If you want a clearer picture of your company's cookie universe before someone else finds the gap for you, I highly encourage you to check out our deeper guide on building a repeatable audit process. You can find it at redcloveradvisors.com under learning resources and downloadable guides. You can also reach out and message us. We'd be delighted to help.